So, George, first, it's such an honor to have you back all the time. And why don't you begin by telling us why the battle between Madison and Wilson defines American constitutional history?
I've said before, I will now say again, that the most important decision taken in the 20th century was not Germany's decision to side with Austria in 1914, and not Hitler's decision to invade Russia in 1941, and not Deng Xiaoping's decision to modernize China. The most important decision taken in the 20th century was where to locate the Princeton Graduate School. President of the university, Woodrow Wilson, wanted it down on the campus. His nemesis, Dean Andrew Fleming West, wanted it where it is, up on a hill near the college. Wilson had one of his characteristic tantrums, resigned, went into politics, and ruined the 20th century. I simplify a bit and exaggerate somewhat. Woodrow Wilson became, and by the way, until 2016, he was the president with the least public experience, civil or military. Woodrow Wilson became the first president to criticize the American founding, which he did not do peripherally. He did it candidly, forthrightly, and root and branch. He said, first of all, the doctrine of natural rights is a mistake, anthropological mistake. He said there never was a state of nature, not that the founders thought there was, but he said, natural rights doctrine is bad because, as the most important word in the Declaration from my point of view, is a verb, to secure. All men are created equal, endowed by their creators with certain inalienable rights, and governments are instituted to secure those rights. First come rights, then comes government, and government does not give us our rights, it protects them. And this, therefore, the natural rights doctrine was inherently limiting. Second, the natural rights doctrine offended progressives at the turn of the century because it implied a human nature, a fixed, unchanging human nature. Whereas if you can say there is no fixed human nature, then human beings can be understood simply as creatures situated in a society that acquire the culture surrounding them. And that gives an enormous potential jurisdiction to government to change the culture and thereby change human beings, to make new people, as it were, to make the human race itself progress in its makeup. Third, and related to the first two, Woodrow Wilson was an opponent of the separation of powers. He thought it was an anachronism by 1912. He said it was all very well when, in the Founders' era, when there were 4 million Americans, 80% of them living within 20 miles of Atlantic tidewater. But now, he said, we're a vast continental nation united by steel rails and copper wires. And the more complex society gets, the more we need a nimble government. That was one of his telling words. At the beck and call of a strong president. Therefore, Congress needed to be somewhat marginalized. The Article 1 needed to become Article 2, and Article 2 needed to become Article 1 of the Constitution. That, in spite of the fact that Article 1, about half of Article 2, about half of Article 2 is how to select a president and how to remove him if necessary. And the other half is pretty much distilled in one sentence, that the president's job is to take care that the laws are faithfully executed, which definitionally makes him inferior to that to which he responds, those who make the laws that he is to execute. Well, this set the stage for what I think is the most equilibrium-destroying fact of modern politics. The great Madisonian equilibrium dependent on rivalrous institutions with their own pride and their own interests and their own prickliness about defending their turf. This gave rise to the modern presidency. The next great step after Woodrow Wilson in this was Franklin Roosevelt. Interesting fact that, of course, he came to Washington first to be Woodrow Wilson's Assistant Secretary of the Navy. And when he became president, when he gave his first fireside chat on this marvelous, magical invention, radio, which was actually more exciting to people than the internet was, and not without reason. It annihilated distance in a way that the internet didn't do. When he gave his first fireside chat, he began with two words that do not appear on the transcript in the library at Hyde Park, but he said them anyway. His two words were, "my friends." Now, we're so used to presidents who feel our pain and presidents who treat us with a kind of faux intimacy. They're in our living rooms all the time. That doesn't startle us anymore. But I try to imagine George Washington saying that to any group of Americans, "my friends," that austere man. It was unthinkable. And I want you to entertain the possibility that perhaps it's not healthy for presidents to pretend to be our friends. There's an intimacy with politics and with politicians and with the centrality and ubiquity of the president in our lives that is not healthy. I for one, don't want a president to be my friends.